We're going to start in just a minute. I would advise you should have received your worksheet. If you haven't, Carly, can you, yeah, there's a link to the worksheet. I'd advise you to print it out if at all possible, and we'll be making use of it throughout the webinar. I hope you'll make use of it throughout the webinar. Let's put it that way. And so again, we're going to start in just a second. If you could post in the chat window where you're located, I always get a kick out of the geographic diversity of our audiences. So in the chat window, please just post where you're located. City and state in the United States, city and country outside the United States. And again, if you've not yet printed out your worksheet, please do so. India, so we have somebody from India here. Anybody else want to post where they're located? Joyce from Toronto, Canada, welcome. Anybody else want to post where they're located? Karshi, Uzbekistan. Whoa, we got really all over. Okay, welcome. Berkuz, Mahir from Bangladesh, Bangalore, Nigeria, Ghana, Nigeria. Anybody from the United States besides me? Bangalore. Okay, a very international audience today. North America, Asia, Africa. All right, let's get started. And anybody else can post where they're located. It's just fun to see the geographic diversity. Okay, let's get started. You're dreaming of a career that excites you. You're aspiring for MBA programs that will launch you towards that career, but you face obstacles. How do you build an application that portrays you at your best and as a perfect match for the schools you're aiming for? How do you move from your application reader, the person going over your application, from your stats to your story, your dreams, your vision? I'll tell you, you learn a framework that allows you to use your application strategically, every inch of that application real estate. And you make the most of every inch of it, just as I said. Now, part of that strategy is going to start right now. And you can either use the worksheet that I'm, again, going to urge you to print out, or you can use a piece of paper or whatever you want. I'm also going to encourage you to, if you have a small bunch of Post-it notes like these, okay, see, or simple pencil and paper, you can use that. And what I'd like you to do on each Post-it note is write down one thing that you'd like business schools to know. Let's start with three Post-it notes and three things. Obviously, if you don't have Post-it notes, just write it down on your worksheet. Take the Post-it note and put it by the item you feel it's most appropriate for. Personal achievement, professional achievement, challenge and obstacle, or write it in the appropriate box. Leadership examples, short-term goals, long-term aspirations, distinctive perspective experiences, or personal traits. Okay. Those are the things that schools are going to be asking about over and over and over again, both in your application and your interviews, if you're lucky enough to get one. Those are the things that they're interested in. And we're going to go into a little bit more later in the webinar. Write down those things, either write on the worksheet or on a little sticky note that you can then put on the worksheet in the appropriate box. I like the sticky notes, the Post-it notes, because you can move them around later and you can add as many as you want. You're not going to run out of room in the box. As ideas come to you during the webinar, please keep adding to your Post-it note collection or your notes on the worksheet. And then you can continue to use this after the webinar if you prefer to continue on paper, or you can transfer the notes you've taken here to a spreadsheet or mind map or whatever works for you. Now, okay, so that was the beginning. Now, a word of introduction, a word about me. My name again is Linda Abraham. I'm the founder and CEO of Accepted, and I've been that since 1994. I am also the co-founder and first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I've been quoted, as you see, in the Wall Street Journal, US News, Business Because, CBS News, Poets and Quants, and others. I'm the host of the Admissions Straight Talk podcast. And if you want to hear some fantastic interviews with MBA admissions directors at top programs, check out the podcast. I've also was named this year as an MBA admissions consultant to know by Business Insider. Before we begin, I want to point out a few items that will help you maximize your time here today, and one that will help us improve the webinars. One, we're going to use the question window for your questions and the chat window for you to answer my questions. We already used the chat window a little bit in terms of geographic location. And obviously there will also be, or not so obviously, there will be a Q&A at the end. And again, I might ask questions in the course of the webinar. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. And we're also going to have a little contest at the end. It's going to be based on, it's going to be a one-question contest based solely on something that I say during the webinar. So pay attention and you can win a free consultation with me. Oh, and one last item before we go into the actual content for today. We have a special for webinar registrants, and that is $500 off any MBA application package. The code is GETIN, and it's valid October 13th through 17th, and you can access it at accepted.com/MBA package. Now, this special is only for webinar registrants. You will not see it on the site. So if you go to that page and you don't see it, don't worry, the coupon code will still work. So what is a strategy that will get you in? I call it DARE. It's a 4-part strategy for approaching the MBA application. And why do you need this strategy that is accepted strategy for acceptance? Well, number one, you have lots of competition. Top MBA programs have the elite among them have acceptance rates of under 10%. Many of the top programs have acceptance rates of under 20%, which still means that 4 out of every 5 applicants is rejected. So the competition is intense. And you need to show, and this is somewhat of a paradoxical goal, you need to show that you both fit in to the cultures and communities at your target schools and that you are a standout in the applicant pool. So those are two goals that you're going to have in your application. And again, they kind of are, they almost fight each other. And then the 4th reason is that it's just plain old hard to apply effectively while working full time. And there are many reasons for that. The biggest one just being a lack of time. You're working hard, you have obligations, you have responsibilities, you have long days, and you add to that the time required for top applications, for good applications, and it's just very, very demanding. Now, this is all true whether you apply round 1, round 2, round 3, early applications, whatever it is, it's all true. But round 2 is different from round 1, and definitely different from round 3, but for different reasons. Most schools receive the most applications, the bulk of their applications, round 2, but some seats are already taken by round 1 applicants. In other words, the available seats have shrunk, almost like in the first round or second round or third round of the children's game musical Chairs. I know we have a very international audience here. I'm not sure if this is played around the world, but in any case, the number of spots available to you round 2 are shrinking. In fact, I had a client years ago, this is probably 20 years ago, a very talented fellow, and he was planning to apply round 1 to his top school, and he got sick. And he wasn't able to apply round 1. And at the time, this was in the 1990s, he was given feedback that if he had applied round 1, he would have gotten in, because round 1, they accepted a bunch of people from his profession, and they simply didn't want to have more people with the same background in their class. And he just didn't make the cut. So let's dive into the framework now. So what does DARE mean? Well, the D, it's an acronym. D stands for determine what you want the schools to know. What do the schools want you to know? Well, let's take a look at that. Schools want to know that, number 1, you can do the work and thrive. This is going to be primarily evident through your GPA and test scores, but it's not exclusively evident there. It's also going to present, or evidence is going to be presented through your work experience, any certifications you may have earned, your recommendations, your post-baccalaureate coursework, if you took anything, whether it's HBS Online or Coursera or master's programs, anything like that will also be taken into consideration. And of course, recommendations. So that's number 1, the thing that schools are looking for. 2, they're looking for, most schools, the overwhelming majority of schools want to know, there are a few that don't care about it so much, but most do, They want to know that you have a goal that requires an MBA from their school. And a goal in MBA terms means, what do you want to do after you graduate? And in what industry do you want to do it? That's the short-term goal, and that's the classic definition. Sometimes location will play a role, but the minimum is, what do you want to do? Not study during your MBA, but do after your MBA. And in what industry do you want to do it? The schools, many schools are also interested in longer-term aspirations or goals. And that usually can best be described in terms of the impact you want to have. It's going to be fuzzier than your short-term goal, but if it's and it can be aspirational, a little bit of a dream, but it's frequently described in terms of the impact you hope to have, or the contribution you hope to make, the change you hope to make, difference. They're also going to want to see that you match their criteria and share their values. Now, some schools are very explicit about the criteria. Harvard Business School, Stanford, Chicago Booth are all really, really good about saying exactly what they're looking for. Other schools are not quite as clear, but a thorough examination of their website and attendance at their online events or offline should illuminate what they consider important and what you need to demonstrate via your application. Whether they're clear or not so clear, you have to show that you share the school's mission and values if you're applying to the school and you want to have a decent chance of getting in. You're also going to want to show that you have something distinctive to contribute, something special that you're going to add to the class and community at that particular school. And you can do so by discussing your distinctive background, unusual level of achievement, perhaps unusual experiences, or the distinctive perspective that you're going to add to your class and community. Realize that schools value diversity of thought, background, experience, and perspective. So it pays for you to show your individuality. Don't focus on the commonality that you have with most other applicants. Focus on your individuality. And you don't have to climb Mount Everest, swim the English Channel, or do something crazy. There is a lot of individuality, every single one of you. I have absolutely no doubt. And if you write in terms and specifically about what you have done, you're much more likely to show that authentic individuality without being weird. So what I would suggest you do, and have done with what we have done with the worksheet, is giving you a little table where you can write down and classify to a certain extent. And there will be overlap. You might, you might want to put things in 2 boxes if you want. A leadership example could also be a professional achievement. But the point is you want to write down things here that you think, first of all, for this session, that any school might be interested in. And then as you're working on individual school applications, you can put, what does Harvard Business School, what should Harvard Business School, or what do you want Harvard Business School to know, or what do you want Chicago Booth to know, or Wharton to know, or whatever the school might be. And then do it for each individual school, because there are differences among the schools. They're subtle, there's overlap, but there are differences, and it's important that you understand those differences when you apply. All right, so that's the D. Determine what you want the schools to know. The A in DARE stands for assess what information each application element asks for. And that's really page 2 of your worksheet, okay? You can do it on this worksheet, or you can do it in a spreadsheet online, or you can do, again, a mind map. But you want to list out for each application, what are the requirements? And if there's any details like word limits or page limits in case of a resume, whatever it might be. And then you choose for that school the experience you're going to highlight in the 3rd column. Will there be some overlap? Occasionally there will be overlap, but the idea here, the goal, the purpose, is to have each element highlight something a little bit different, even if there is overlap. Maybe in one on your resume, you're going to focus on the results of a particular initiative. But if you have room in a box, you can talk about the leadership aspect, or you can go into the personal interrelationship difficulties that you had in achieving what you achieved. So make sure that every single element is highlighting something else, something different. Now let's go through some of these elements, all right? Resume. The resume is frequently, not always, but many admissions committee people have said to me that they look at the resume first. It's their introduction to you. So take advantage of it. Make a great first impression with an impact-filled or achievement-oriented resume. Don't focus your resume merely on what you are tasked with or what your responsibilities are. Focus on your achievements and the results you've achieved, the difference you've made. Now, then there are the essays. And you can use the essays to really show your fit with the particular mission and values of the school. I recently interviewed the co-directors of admissions at Dartmouth Tuck School of Business. And they did a great job there of just exploring how every single element of the application, but particularly the essays, map to Tuck's criteria and values. So first of all, if you're going to Tuck, you really have to listen to this. But even if you're not applying to Tuck, listen to it and through with their eyes, listen to see what they're trying to accomplish. And you can do this. I've done this with many admissions directors. They are very intentional and purposeful in what they require of you. They're really not trying to waste your time, and they don't want to waste their time in reading it. So when you are looking at the school's values and you look at the application, think about how different elements, especially the essays, map to those values. And in the essays, you can go into greater depth to show how you handled leadership and teamwork challenges, interpersonal difficulties, perhaps supply chain difficulties. Everybody's having that right now. You can talk about multicultural fluency, which for INSEAD, for example, is extremely important and valued at many schools. You can talk about your personal background, perhaps personal challenges that you've overcome to achieve what you've achieved, depending, again, upon what the school is asking you for. You want to answer the school's questions. You can highlight some elements that may highlight how you can contribute as a unique individual to the program. Now, if asked about goals, show both self-awareness, again, depending upon how the question is phrased, but if a typical goals question will be, what do you want to do post MBA and why do you want to attend our school? And if that's the question, make sure you show both self-awareness and knowledge of the program in terms of how it's going to help you achieve your goals. If you have a goal, it should be grounded in your experience, and it should follow logically from what you've done. It doesn't have to necessarily be your current job, but some experience, whether it's in the not-for-profit world or in college or something you did for a short while and then turned away from and want to go back to. There should be something experiential to your goals and your aims. Many schools, as you see from the worksheet, and also if you just look at applications, will have short answer questions. So here are the short answer questions, the optional short answer questions for Stanford. They're giving you up to 1,200 characters for this, which is roughly 200 words. Think about times you've created a positive impact, whether in professional, extracurricular, academic, or other settings. What was your impact? What made it significant to you and to others? The second set question is really why. Why are you telling me about this? And don't forget to answer the why. That's what I'm going to say here. And again, if you're going to answer these short answer questions, which are optional, but they give you an opportunity to highlight, again, your leadership, your ability, your potential, the contributions you've made, I would certainly recommend that you do it. And think about it, though, as a way to complement what you're putting elsewhere in the application, particularly in the required essay questions. The second one is tell us about a time in the last 3 years when your background influenced your participation in a situation, interaction, or project. Only 200 words. So briefly describe your background, and then what was the situation? How did you respond because of your background? What about the job history section? Well, you're going to want, again, you're going to have so many boxes, different schools. Some schools allow you, for example, Harvard allows you to elaborate a little bit on what you've done. Other schools, it's just, when did you start? When did you finish? What was your salary? Nothing but the facts. We're done. If you have questions, text boxes, that's opportunity for you to highlight something not revealed elsewhere. Use it. The activity history section, here is Wharton's activity history section. This probably has more opportunity for you to highlight activities not mentioned on your resume and not mentioned elsewhere. Again, use it. You could be talking about your participation in sports or the arts or in college or since. I remember I once worked with a client. This was, again, a long time ago because I'm not working individually with clients now, but we were working along, it was all going well. And she mentioned to me almost in passing that she was on a swim team, a master's swim team that required several hours of training a week. And I said to her, why didn't you tell me about this student? She says, well, I didn't think it was important. I says, it shows time management, it shows teamwork, it shows all kinds of wonderful qualities. And she'd been doing it, I think, throughout college. She had a high GPA. It was important. And it would go in your activity history if that was you. An initiative you started in your community service activity, tutoring or teaching, either through a community service organization, perhaps a faith-based organization, political activism. All these things could go in and should go in the community service or activity area of your application. And then there's a letter of recommendation. In terms of recommenders, you should ask your recommenders, and they should almost always be professional people whom you worked for, your supervisors. Ask them if they're willing to comment positively on your work and specifically on your leadership and management potential. If they hesitate, ask somebody else. Okay, they could hesitate because they don't have as high opinion of you as you think. They could hesitate because they don't have the time to write it. So that's the A part of DARE. Assess what are the opportunities for you to present different, more additional complementary information about yourself in the application. Then you have R, relate what schools seek to what you want them to know. And how would you do this? Well, you can use, again, a good old spreadsheet, mind mapping software, my friendly Post-it notes. There you go. But you should perform this exercise for each application that you're submitting, because they are different. What they value is going to be different. The experiences that you want to highlight may be different, or maybe need to be presented in slightly different ways. This is something that we work with our clients on constantly. And you may find, you're almost definitely going to find, that you can't fit everything into the application that you'd like to. And in that case, prioritize based on the instructions given and the school's value and where you can show the best fit with an individual school. And then E. This is a little bit of a funky one, but I wanted to use the acronym. That is establishing the structure for your MBA application. Determine what you want schools to know. Assess what the schools are asking for via the different parts of the application, and then match what you want the schools to know with what is requiring. Notice I'm not saying write the essays first, write anything first. I'm talking sit down first and plan. All right, and maybe the E would have been better if it was a P, but then I wouldn't have had a word. All right, it's establish the structure for your MBA application before you start writing. And that's how you will create a compelling round 2 MBA application. Now let's have the contest. Okay. The first 3 to respond correctly to this question will win a free consultation with me. And the question is, and I'd like you to respond in the chat window. What application element is most likely to create the reader's first impression of you? Oh, got a lot of them. Got that one. Okay. Let's see, Nicolette. I'm gonna need glasses for this. Nicolette, you got it. James, you got it. And Behruz, I apologize if I mispronounced somebody's name. Behruz, you also got it. Okay. All right, wonderful. Thank you. Oh, you great audience here. Now I have another question for you, and I'm just curious. What has been for you? This is the first time I'm presenting this particular webinar. What has been for you the most valuable concept, insight, or piece of information so far in this presentation? And I'd like you to, again, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, good. Thank you. What has been the most valuable piece of concept, insight, or piece of information so far in this presentation? Whoa, dare. Okay. Focusing on individuality. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Behru, Purva, Nicolette, Banu, Gunjesh, Sejal, Joyce, Karen, Sri. Whoa, great. Again, we have a great audience this morning. Plan before writing the essay. Wonderful. Okay. So you know what the schools are looking for at this point, and you know the DARE approach to giving it to them, but you still have a problem. How are you going to apply the DARE framework efficiently and effectively? You're still working full time. You still don't have years of experience in MBA admissions. Here's a solution to your problem. Get the guidance of someone who has years of experience and the expertise to advise you, boost your confidence, and save your time. And make sure you aren't making mistakes that can really reduce your chances of acceptance. Let me tell you a little story about Juan. Now, Juan's a pseudonym, but he came to a webinar just like this one. I think he's already in B school. I'm trying to remember when, whether was it last year or 2 years ago. I think it was last year. And he won a free consultation with me. He didn't intend to use our services, but during the call, he expressed a lot of concerns about certain aspects of his background that, in my opinion, were strengths. He wanted to minimize certain aspects of his background that, frankly, I thought he should be spotlighting, highlighting, trumpeting to the world. He found the consultation helpful, and he decided to use our services. And he is today a student in the Wharton Lauder program, a program, by the way, that he hadn't even initially planned to apply to. I have to ask you, what aren't you thinking of? Obviously, you don't know. What will you highlight the right experiences in your application, the right perspective? There's an awful lot to each of you, and you have to thoughtfully choose what's most reflective of you and best shows fit with the individual schools. You're now at a crossroads on your professional journey. As you start your round 2 MBA application, you can either take a do-it-yourself approach or a professional approach. Given that we're talking about a 6-figure investment in your MBA application, your career, lifelong earnings potential, and job satisfaction, I highly recommend that professional approach and engagement with an accepted consultant. We'd like to help you apply confidently and successfully. While you want to apply exactly once, or once more if you're our applicant, we've been helping MBA applicants get accepted for 27 years. We'd love to help you not only get accepted, but get into a program that launches you on your dream career trajectory. Put simply, it pays to have an experienced professional guiding you at this critical juncture on your educational and professional journey. If you engage with Accepted, you can access expertise and experience, reduce your stress, save time, optimize school choice and your application, and mitigate your weaknesses. Now, some may say Accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff, and one of whom you're going to meet in just a minute. However, there are also more expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. They're just not posted so clearly on the website. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s with test prep and interview travel, if interview travel is going to resume. You would have 1 additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can easily cost in the 5 figures in dollars. There's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network, and that can cost you 5 or 6 figures lifetime. To prove our point, I'd like to suggest that you check out a new tool that's on the screen. It's fun, quick, provides 3 different scenarios for people who do not use an accepted consultant and get rejected, and lays out the cost of rejection in each case. So again, that's accepted.com/MBA/consultant-calculator. Check it out. That's free, and it's kind of fun. So take, like I said, try it. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? We made it, finally submitted both applications on time. And again, this fellow was very happy. Thank you for your amazing effort and support on both applications. There were more applications ultimately that he applied to, and he was accepted to Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton with a low GPA. Or here we have two more. I was admitted. I cannot thank you enough. I believe that was for Cindy Tokamitsu, who was supposed to join us, but unfortunately cannot. And then the testimonial number 3. Yesterday, I got the good news, and it was from Harvard. This was from an Indian male consultant who got rejected the first time around and started working with accepted consultant Jennifer Bloom early in the process the second time around. Yesterday, I got the good news, and it was from Harvard. I'm absolutely thrilled. Amidst the euphoria, I want to take out a moment to thank Accepted, Jennifer in particular, for all the help and in ways that went beyond admissions consulting. Imagine yourself in the shoes of the clients I just quoted, accepted to your dream school, getting ready for the experience of a lifetime and the career you've dreamed of. We want to support you on this journey as we supported the clients that you just heard from. But our doubts and questions about your qualifications and how to proceed, leading to analysis paralysis, perhaps some form stocking, concern about your essays. The fact that you're here tells me that you're not like those who want to take a do-it-yourself approach to your applications or wait until the last minute with them when you kind of panic. You're different. You want to actually apply to the right program, present yourself effectively, and get accepted to the MBA program that will help you achieve your goals, aspirations, and dreams. To do so, here's what I suggest you do. Go to accepted.com/MBA package, add to cart, and get the experience, objective perspective, and comprehensive support that can turbocharge your application. We're here to guide you and help you get accepted to the best MBA program for you. And as you can see on the upper right, there is a discount being offered right now for the next 3 days that will help you get in. That will save you money, help you get started, and that will in and of itself, I think, make for a better application. And now I'm happy to take your questions. I'm also joined by Natalie Greenblatt Epstein, who before joining Accepted in 2008, served as head of admissions at 3 top MBA programs and estimates that as an admissions director, she reviewed over 70,000 applications. Since joining Accepted, and again, that was in 2008, so it's about 13 years now, she has guided applicants to acceptance at top programs like Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, London Business School, INSEAD, Columbia, Kellogg, Booth, MIT Sloan, and the rest of the top MBA programs. Cindy Tokamitsu joined Accepted in 1998. She's one of our most senior consultants, and she's been assisting MBA applicants to acceptance at the best programs in the world also. Unfortunately, she may be joining us a little later, but probably she won't be able to make it. So it's just going to be Natalie and me to take your questions. I'm sure Natalie is going to do a great job. So let's see. Natalie, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Let me turn on the camera.
Okay.
It says I'm unable to start the camera.
Well, I just made you a co-host.
Okay. See now. There we go.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Okay.
Good to see you,
Can
Natalie.
you see me?
I see you. Let me get the
Okay.
Q&A window open. Okay. All right. We have, again, my apologies to anybody whose name I mispronounce. All right. Banu asks, what would be the ideal time to take for preparing essays? Oh, look, you seem so happy with that question.
I just like the longer the better, but I have to say I've had some clients who've been absolutely whirlwind with preparing essays. So I think here's the thing. The first application is the most difficult to do. And it's one of the reasons why on the comprehensive packages, we charge the most, because we do a lot of data collection. We do a lot of strategizing. We, guide you with your recommendations. There's just a lot that goes into that. We set your strategy. We get, we work on your brand. We try to figure out, your fit with each school, as Linda mentioned in her DARE framework. And so the first application is going to take you quite a bit of time. And I would say at least, a month. After that, it goes pretty quickly. Like once you've gotten through the first application, then the second, third, fourth become gradually easier to do. So the next one might take, 2 weeks to do or 3
Right.
weeks to do. After that, it may take, 1 to 2 weeks to do. And then everyone after that, I would give at least a week. But I prefer more. So I had a client that started working with me in February for round 1. He got all 8 applications in round
Wow.
1.
Wow.
And he has, been getting interviews right and left. So
Fantastic.
we took a long time to do that. So
right. I would realize that we're not talking about sitting for 4 weeks straight and writing essays. We understand that you're working full time and that you have an obligation. So that time estimate is allowing for that. Writing is rewriting. Professional writers rewrite constantly, revise, rewrite, edit, proof, and they're the professionals. Amateurs have to allow for that process if they want to write well. Okay. And no offense to any of you, but I'm going to assume that none of you are professional writers. So allow time for your essays to start out not being so good and then get better and better and better. And that's going to take time. Anonymous attendee asks, is it possible that someone who was already rejected in round 1 then becomes waitlisted in round 3? It's the only time that happened was when COVID hit. And I think it was one school that allowed for that. That, in other words,
who actually asked
yeah,
for us for people that, some of our clients that they may have missed.
Right. But I mean, barring, a pandemic, a global pandemic upsetting everything, no, it's not possible.
I have a caveat to that, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Linda.
Go ahead.
And that's a request for your what is it called? Reconsideration.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there is a very minute possibility that this might work. I only reconsidered 3 people, meaning I brought them into the program eventually, but they were waitlisted after they were denied from a reapplication.
Really?
For a reconsideration. 3 in 19 years. So not a lot.
Don't count on it.
But
Don't count on it.
It's possible. It's absolutely possible. I actually had a client do one in at work, Linda. So and it was for talk, which was interesting.
Okay.
So so a reconsideration, and we will work with you on reconsideration letters, but a reconsideration is possible. And it's really, trying to get them to put you on the wait list so that they can actually, look at you with other waitlisted candidates and round 3 candidates. So.
Okay, let's move on. We have a question here from Sejal. Hi, Linda. I'm currently working on my Yale SOM application. Since I lost my father a few months back due to COVID, I'm currently handling my family business. The long essay question of Yale SOM is about the biggest commitment. Can I speak about my commitment towards my family being the youngest child of the family? Well, first of all, let me express my condolences on your loss. I'm sure that's it's very, very hard. Absolutely is the answer to the question. Natalie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I also would like to extend my sympathies. But no, I half of my clients talk about family as being the commitment. So I mean, it's a great commitment to talk about.
And obviously, and under these circumstances, it's not just talk.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And taking over the family business, I think, is, a huge commitment as well. So, I mean, one of the things you're going to want to do is express to Yale that you have a plan, a succession plan for when you attend their program.
Right.
But I think it's it's the topic you should write about.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have here from an anonymous attendee, how does the GMAT GRE score weigh percentage in our application?
You want me to take?
Well, I'll tell you how I think. Okay, and you can then disagree with me or agree or whatever. It can weigh 100% in keeping you out. It will not get you in. And in between, it's all over the map, depending upon the rest of your application and the school you're applying to.
I will add the legal part of this.
Okay.
And so there were some Supreme Court rulings over 10 years ago now about whether or not you can use like points for particular sections. And so most schools have gone to a like non-point system. Like, we're not going to weigh 25% of your application with the GMAT score. That's not, it just doesn't happen anymore. It's actually become more subjective because of those rulings. And every school will tell you, it depends, but Linda's right. It can keep you out, but it doesn't necessarily bring you in. Obviously, the higher the better sometimes, but everything else needs to have as much excellence as a high GMAT score or GRE.
Right. Somebody, an anonymous attendee is asking, which does admissions see first, the resume or the GMAT GRE score? In the webinar, I think before you came on, Natalie, I think I said that I think the resume is most likely to be seen first, but it does differ depending upon who's reading it in the school, et cetera. And some schools are actually block off seeing the GMAT or GRE score because they want the application to be evaluated without that data being considered. So it's impossible to say for every school and every admissions reader. But anyway, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, last year, a lot of schools were test optional.
Yeah.
And this year, some have carried on that process. So I mean, myself, I read a resume first. I have a colleague who just retired who used to read the recommendations first.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it's very dependent on the reader. It's usually the first thing you see in the as you see the electronic application. Most of the software is set up so that's the first thing you see, and then you go to the data, and then you go to the essays, and then you go to the recommendations.
All right.
But it really depends on the software that they're using.
Tika asks, are we able to choose the consultant we want to work with and accepted? Yes, as long as that consultant is available, you can work with that consultant, the consultant that you chose. The answer to that is yes. Sri asks, hi, Linda. Thank you for your helpful session. Would you recommend signing up for admissions counseling post getting one's GMAT score? It depends a little bit. There are a lot of consultants, a lot of clients sign up before the GMAT because they want guidance on other parts of their application as well. So they might sign up, for an hour of consulting even before they get the GMAT, and then they get the GMAT, and then that we can help with school choice and et cetera. It's one of those things that depends. If you're seriously interested in working with us, you can also sign up for a free consultation just to kind of see where you're at. The one advantage of signing up earlier is that more consultants are available and you will have that choice. As we get closer to deadlines, the more senior consultants book up.
Yeah, I mean, for round one, I booked up in June. And I
Yeah.
had to turn quite a few clients away, including referrals from former clients. And that always hurts me
Yeah.
when I have to do that.
Right.
No, it does. I mean, I want to
No,
work with
it
my
definitely advantages in
referrals.
signing up early.
Yeah.
If you're, especially if you're determined to apply almost, you're fairly confident of your GMAT score, you're going to apply, whether it's, a few points higher, a few points lower, you might just change your school mix, then sign up early. Okay, sign up now and take advantage of the special.
Right.
All
It's a
right.
good special.
Is it good to address reasons for lower GPA in the application? If yes, in what part and how to address them? It depends how low the GPA is relative to the average GPA of the school you're applying to, but usually yes. And it also depends on what the reasons are. Now, I did a whole podcast on mitigating the impact of a GPA. You can find it at exhibit.com/137. But in general, the answer is yes, it's good to do. Here, I'm going to put this in the chat window for you. There you go. You can listen to it. And let's go on to the next one. Apurva asks, won't applications seem similar of students who are applying through MBA consultants? Isn't the adcom doubtful of such applications? We have about we survey our clients every year. And of the respondents, we're over 90% have acceptances. So it doesn't seem to have hurt them any. Okay. Our approach is not a cookie cutter approach. We are, again, much, if you think about the presentation I just gave, much of it was about showing your fit with the school while highlighting your authentic individuality. All right. Natalie, you have something to add to this question?
No, I
Good
treat
question.
everybody as, yeah, it's a great question. I treat everybody individually. I would say, like, all of my colleagues have their own way of working with their clients. It's our training is not about what that we should do things lockstep. I mean, Linda has given us the ability to do the work that we know as best we can. So helping you as a consultant is very individual, and working with you on each school is going to be an individual process as well. Not one application of mine of my clients looks like another application of another client. So no, I would say it's not an issue.
The other thing I would say is, this is going to sound kind of funny, it certainly is ironic, but one of the most common things that we help applicants with, especially applicants coming from large overrepresented groups in the applicant pool, is individuating. They tend to write in ways where they blend in. They write in generalities. Well, we keep telling you, what does this mean? Can you be more specific? It's not us saying, and the other thing is there's a great rumor mill out there telling people what to write. So for example, I'll never forget this particular client had absolutely no entrepreneurial experience. He came to us, he bought a rejection review because he'd been rejected. And he worked with a consultant who at the time was new. She's been with us for several years now. And she said, I would have rejected you too. She was a former admissions director also at Yale. And he said, well, why would you have rejected me? He says, because your goal didn't relate at all to your what you've done in the past. Do you really, he wanted to be, he had written that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He says, do you really want to be an entrepreneur? No, I don't really want to be an entrepreneur, but my friends told me that that's the hot goal this year. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Needless to say, he did decide to work with her. He did not put that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He had a lot of really good experience in financial services. And he wrote that that is what he wanted to do. So I think he was in trading. And so he got accepted at one of the top, one of the M7 schools, second time around. All right. Let's see.
By the way, you don't necessarily have to have a goal that's the same thing that you're doing now. I mean, you need
No,
a value
you can be a career
proposition.
changer, but there has to be
Right.
some logic. In his case, it was a complete disconnect.
Right. And that happens a lot too. I actually had that conversation this morning, which is why I was late. But it was the same sort of thing that, oh, but this is what's going on in the chat rooms. And I said, yeah, well, that's not what's going on with you. So we had to have a really good conversation, a transparent conversation about what he really wanted to do and how that would work with the school. So I'd rather you be passionate. I mean, I did have a client over 10 years ago now who wrote about something that he thought the admissions committee wanted to hear. And this was a Harvard interview. And if there's any school that can like bore through the truth, it's Harvard. And he got tripped up on a couple of questions about his goal because it wasn't really what he wanted to do. I mean, he convinced himself that this is what he wanted to do, but he didn't do enough research on the goal. So he got tripped up in the interview, and then the rest of the interview didn't go well because he was constantly thinking back on that question. So he wrote about it in the reflection, and unfortunately he didn't get in, but he did go to Wharton, so he was pretty happy there. But yeah, it happens. You just need to make sure that you're not using the internet as your source for information that should be very individual and very truthful.
All right. Tika asks, is it worth it to give a try to reapplication in round 2 for M7 school, or is it better to look for other schools? Tika, did you apply last year to the M school in 7 or to other M7 schools? And you can respond in either the chat window. The chat window would be fine for that response. I'll be looking for it. So the question is it worth it to give a try to reapplication round 2 in M7, or is it better to look for other schools? So you're talking about applying to this, reapplying. You applied last year to an M7 school and you want to reapply to the same school round 2 this year. I think it would depend on what you've been doing, how you've improved your application, whether it makes sense to apply, because that's going to be the key thing that they're looking for. I wouldn't say, I mean, yeah, they do kind of like round 1, but it depends on the school too. But I think the key thing is how you've improved your application. Natalie, and I'm hoping she'll answer my question.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the delta is the most important. So, what has happened since you applied last year to what has happened to your application this year? What happened when you did this particular project? What were the results? What were the actions? Do you have improvement?
Yeah.
This is like the perfect kind of question. Also, it's really an individual question because I need more information about you that we can do in a free 15-minute consultation. So.
Okay. So we have an anonymous attendee asking, hi, Linda and Natalie, thanks for all the information. I have a full-time job experience for around 10 months only and am currently unemployed. I lost my job due to the pandemic. Do you think my MBA application would not be strong? I am preparing for my GMAT exam right now, and my target school is one of the Ivy Leagues. I think you'd be much better off not applying now, getting a job and applying while employed, either in fall, winter of 2022, 23, or even waiting an additional year. That would be my recommendation. Natalie, you have anything to add?
I completely agree.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, if you have an international multicultural upbringing, should you highlight this in the application, the extra information session, if it does not organically flow from the essays?
Yeah, you can do it in the optional essay part. I mean, I do have people talking about their backgrounds because they're so unique, and the application itself didn't give them an opportunity to talk about these very unique upbringings. So yeah, you can do that. If it does flow, I mean, you can use it. Harvard flows, you can use it there. Booth flows, you can use it there. So did you have anything else, Linda, on that
I would
one?
just say this is one of those things that kind of I was trying to convey, and to a certain extent was also trying to set you up for with the worksheet. Okay, you have to look at each application strategically. If it flows in an essay, use the additional information for something else. If it doesn't flow in the essay or in the resume, or the, you know, perhaps you're still a member of some ethnic organization related to where you come from or lived, you can then, it would come out in the community service activities then. So assuming that there's some active participation, not just a card in your wallet, assuming we carry wallets. But anyways, you know, that's, it really depends very much on you, what else you have to highlight. This is the kind of thing that we work with our clients on, and it does require just more information about you, how to present that. But there's no question that schools value, some schools more than others, but INSEAD in particular, international or multicultural upbringing and experience. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Anonymous attendee writes, should you include work history from when you were young in your resume, especially if it highlights international experience continuously working? Probably depend on how young. In general, you don't go back before college. Sometimes if you had really interesting experience, you would. So you know, that would be kind of my very fuzzy guideline. Natalie, what would you say?
No, I agree with that. There are some cultures that really do want to go back to like their childhood. And you know, unless it's like incredibly interesting, I wouldn't necessarily go back that far. And admissions committees don't really care about your high school schooling situation, your education. They're more interested in your college and post-collegiate activities. So try to stay in your adult life, but if you have something that's unique, and I think you said you had like a multicultural background, I do like when I see people who have you know, moved around a lot and how they adapted to those moves. So in that case, we might go a little further back because, you know, being able to adapt to strange situations, I think, is one of the key characteristics that you need in business. So
We have a couple of questions here about, I'm gonna have to bring this to a close. We have a couple of questions here about applying round 3. So Sri asked, would it be a great disadvantage to apply in round 3? And there's an anonymous attendee that asked, for a first-time working applicant, would you advise to apply in round 1 next year or accelerate to apply in round 3 of this year? It depends.
I think, you know, round 3 was tougher last year than it was the year before. There were a lot of people accepted
Yeah.
in
Well,
round
that was
3
the
the year
COVID. That was
before.
the COVID cycle.
Right. And so, so last year it was a little bit more difficult. I think if you can, I would probably wait until round 1, but this is also a really individual thing. So I would love to see your resume. Like, you can send it to me at Natalie at Accepted. And you know, I'll look at your resume and give you some advice about whether or not I think you should hold off or apply in round 3 this year.
The other thing I was going to say is we do have, and actually, Carly, could you post the link to the round 3 webinar we had? We have a recording of it. I gave a bunch of scenarios, people who could apply, should apply round 3, people who shouldn't apply round 3. That might be helpful. And I'm sure Carly's going to find it and post that in the chat window. So just kind of hold on for a second. And then really good question from Sajal, how to select schools on the basis of reach schools, safe schools, and target schools. I prefer to use the term reach schools, safe schools, and competitive schools. That's, my preferred lingo, but I think we're all talking about the same thing. You want, and do you want to take this or do you want me to take this?
No, go ahead.
All right. I would say, let's say you apply to 6 to 8 schools. Okay. I would say that at least 4 should be competitive, where your stats give you confidence that you have a reasonable chance of acceptance. Maybe 2 reach and 1 to 2 safety. And you could go 2 to 3 reach and then 3 competitive and 1 to 2 safety. That also makes sense. Again, there's a little bit of it depends in this response, because it will also depends on how far are you reaching, how are your stats, how good is your work experience, kind of confidence level comes in too. But that would be just a real fuzzy guideline. Natalie, what would you say about that?
No, I mean, I agree with that. It depends on, how many schools you're applying to. And I think obviously the sweet spot in the match schools should be the greater number. So, 2, 3, 1 or 2. But the other thing is you can take a 2-pronged approach. And that is, you can apply for like your reach schools in round 2, reach schools and match schools in round 2. And then if you need the safety, you can apply to the safety in round 3. Hopefully you won't need the safety by then. So the other way to do it is apply to match schools in round 2. I wouldn't apply, and then I'd wait for, if you get into those match schools and you don't want to go next year, then you can wait until round 1 to apply to reach schools. I usually work this game with, it's not a game, it's a strategy with consultants that are applying in, or clients that are applying in round 1. Like, should we split them out, round 1 and round 2? And it's worked. I mean, it's worked in both directions if you apply to match and safeties at different times, particularly if you have limited time.
Right. All right. At this point, I want to, first of all, thank Natalie for coming and for her participation. I want to thank you, audience, for attending and participating. You've been fantastic. I want to thank you for your questions, your answers, your time, and your attention. You've been a marvelous audience. I have one final story, thought, not in that order, and a final question for you folks. The thought, get started. There's a lot to do to have an excellent MBA application. That's Natalie talked about it earlier. I've talked about it. You have roughly 2.5 months to really submit outstanding applications, and the time will go by quickly. Actually, yeah, about 2.5 months. Get started. Don't wait. The story, a couple of years ago, I got a call from a fellow named John. He had an excellent GMAT, a prestigious job on Wall Street, slightly below average GPA, but he was in a really, really tough major at a public Ivy, and he was aiming for top business schools. And this competitive, highly accomplished applicant spoke to one of our consultants, happened to be Natalie, and me about accepted services. And then he decided to take the do-it-yourself approach. The following year, I got a call again from him. He'd not gotten in anywhere. He'd gotten close, really close, 3 wait lists. I can't imagine a much more frustrating ending for him, but he didn't make the cut. And this time he wanted to work with the consultant whom he had spoken with the year earlier. Again, that was Natalie. And perhaps, and we talked, and she and I talked, and perhaps the first time around he was too cocky. Perhaps he was nervous and he blew his interviews. Perhaps he didn't present himself as well as he should have via his written application or his interviews, because obviously he got really close. Whatever it was, he didn't get in the first time. Here's what he wrote about his experience working with Natalie. After reviewing my previous submission and talking multiple times, she identified numerous ways that I could enhance my application. As part of helping me craft an application that highlighted my attributes, we redesigned the layout of my resume and optimized my essay topics to present me in the most well-rounded way. If you expect the best from yourself, then Natalie will help you achieve it. The results speak for themselves, as I will be attending MIT Sloan. I hope Purva is still here. Oh, she left. Oh, well, I'm not sure actually if Purva is a male or a female name, but that directly answered that question. Now, last year, MIT Sloan was only one of 4 US MBA programs with an acceptance rate of under 15%. So John got the guidance he needed to avoid the pitfalls that had felled his previous application. Working with Accepted, he also brought out his strengths and distinctive qualities, and ultimately showed that he belongs at a top MBA program, specifically MIT Sloan. He got into a top school with Accepted's help. So can you. Get accepted. Now, if you're wondering about my question for you is, take a second. I won't take much more of your time. You stayed for the webinar. You stayed for the pitch. You stayed for the Q&A, which I truly appreciate. You certainly seem to be interested in what we have to say here. And I'm curious. I'm wondering if you can help me out. If you're not already a client or planning to become a client, would you be willing to share your reasons for not engaging with an accepted consultant? And you can put that in the question or the chat window. I'll be watching them both. Once the presentation's almost over. Okay, Nicolette, you'll be contacted. Yeah. Okay, well, Carly responded to you. Okay, again, the question was, if you're willing to share, please, what would be, if you're not planning to become a client or currently a client, would you be willing to share your reasons for not engaging one-on-one with accepted? All right, Behruz says you haven't made up your mind yet. That's fine. And we'll talk anyway, so I think you were a winner, right? Yes, okay. I can't afford it. Okay, that's a reasonable response. Okay. If you cannot afford our services, I completely understand. Take advantage of the free resources like this webinar, like our guides, like the podcast. That would be my advice to you. If you're not sure if you can afford it, or you're not sure it's worth the money, then I would, again, strongly encourage you to take that quiz, the ROI, the consultant ROI quiz that can you post that link again, please, Carly? Okay, I wouldn't say you're not planning to become a client, but they're slightly discouraged due to the prices, since the prices are quite high once converted internationally. I sympathize with that. Yeah, I know that internationally it is difficult for international, at least some, when the dollar is strong, to afford accepted prices. We do have a lot of international clients, though, especially from MBA programs. We estimate that our international client base is between 1/3 and 40% actually in the MBA market. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously it doesn't mean that you can pay for it. We do have payment plans, which we will work out, but they're not, you would need to pay it off before you submit your application. So that might help you in terms of affording it. And I would encourage you, if you are thinking of it and you can afford it, might be tough, look at maybe our hourly rate services. You can benefit, those are a little bit less expensive than the flat rate, and you can choose more where you're spending your money and time. They're not as comprehensive, obviously, but the 10-hour rate is a pretty good buy. Okay. Now, Joyce, do you have anything to add on that one, Natalie?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, if you do, just stop me.
Yeah.
Okay. Joyce writes, she's not sure how many application packages to engage with and not sure when to apply. Round 1 next year or round 3 this year. I would encourage you to have a free call. All right. That's free. And we could possibly advise you on that in the free call, and then you'll know whether it makes sense to purchase now. A lot of times people will engage with us just for advising in the year prior to applying, so that they can have suggestions on how to improve their leadership, how to improve international exposure. We don't do test prep, where they should perhaps invest their time in terms of community service. Should they change their jobs or not change their jobs? That kind of stuff. And then, that might just be an hour consultation, and they say it's extremely valuable. So Joyce, thank you for raising that question. And again, we posted the link to the round 3 webinar. You might want to take a look at that. I think that's also in the chat window. Anybody else want to share what, if they are hesitating about engaging with Accepted, why they're doing so? And if not, I look forward to seeing all of you as clients. Anybody else? If not, then thank you very, very much for your time, your attention, your attendance. Natalie, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. And good luck, everybody, with your applications. Take care.